Hi everyone, welcome to another video, and if you are new here, hi, my name is Carmel, and on this channel we talk about all things makeup and beauty. And in today's video I have a battle of the skin tints for you. If you have been here within the last few months, you will know that I have recently discovered a skin tint that I have absolutely fallen in love with, and this is the L'Oreal True Match Nude Plumping Tinted Serum. I discovered this a few months back when I was doing a full face of L'Oreal, and I was blown away by this and I've been loving it ever since. So the L'Oreal tint has featured on my channel a couple of times, and since then people have told me that I needed to go and try another tint, another drugstore tint, and this is from Maybelline, and this is the Maybelline Superstay 24-hour skin tint. I've been putting these tints to the test for the past few weeks and I have lots of thoughts on them. So if comparing drugstore skin tints sounds like something that you might be interested in, please do keep on watching. So I have been testing these out for the past few weeks, but I thought the easiest thing to do would be to film myself putting each of these tints to the test individually. So you will be seeing footage of a 10-hour wear test for each, and then we're going to be comparing the footage side by side. So before we get into it, let's just have a look at how they factually compare. The L'Oreal skin tint, it claims to have 9 flexible shades. The Maybelline skin tint comes in 18 shades, which they also claim are flexible, but they also include olive shades. Yes, olive shades for us olives who rarely get catered to. And I did pick up one of those olive shades. I will talk to you about the shades in a little while. The L'Oreal Tinted Plumping Serum is infused with 1% hyaluronic acid, which would indicate that it is a very hydrating skin tint. And on the other hand, the Maybelline skin tint is infused with a vitamin C derivative, which would indicate that it would be a brightening foundation. The L'Oreal Tinted Serum claims to give a naturally luminous finish, and the Maybelline claims to give a skin-like radiant finish. The L'Oreal Serum claims to visibly plump the skin, and the Maybelline claims to brighten the skin. And then there was a couple of extra claims for the Maybelline. So it claims to be humidity, sweat and fade resistant, and it is also vegan. Now, if we look at the ingredients, now I am not qualified to break down ingredients for you. If I have a look at the ingredient list, they are very, very similar. And one ingredient there that I know some people may be concerned with, and I know when I did my full face of L'Oreal and I reviewed this tinted serum by L'Oreal, somebody asked me a question about the denatured alcohol. So as I said, not an expert on this by any means, but I have done research since I was asked the question about alcohol in makeup and in skincare. And from what I've read, that alcohol is introduced to products to reduce the viscosity of that product and to help with the application and the absorption of the product, and obviously for the preservation of the product as well. And I know some people are concerned about their skin barriers and alcohol, and I think, look, we all have such different types of skin. So personally, I don't have sensitive skin, but that doesn't mean that I won't do in the future. So I'm definitely not naive in that sense. But I think if you have particularly sensitive skin, I think that some people find that alcohol in products can dry out their skin, can make their skin a little bit more textured, could dehydrate the skin. If you use them long term, I think you just have to judge your skin, judge your skincare routine. Personally, I have a very regimented skincare routine where I really do try to look after my skin barrier, and I think that the quantities are so low in these products that I personally wouldn't be concerned about them being harmful. However, you really do have to just make that decision for yourself. You know you and you know your skin, but it is worth noting that both of these skin tints do contain alcohol. Now, as for the price points, they are very, very similar. Obviously, drugstore prices do range from place to place, from website to website, but I do find that the L'Oreal is always a little bit more expensive, so around about £12, and the Maybelline usually comes in at around 11, but I have seen it as high as £15 for the L'Oreal and as low as 10 or 9 for the Maybelline. So there isn't really much of a difference between the two. Packaging wise, very, very similar, very sturdy glass bottles, the same absolutely horrific dropper. I hate these droppers so much. So they both have this horrible little dropper. I've not met one person or spoken to one person that actually appreciates the dropper. So what are you doing? L'Oreal, what are you doing? L'Oreal own Maybelline, right? Pretty sure they do. So I have the Maybelline in the shade 34, which is a light to medium shade with a neutral olive undertone. Hooray. I have the shade 3 to 4 light to medium in the L'Oreal. But I want to show you these side by side just so you can have a look at the difference in how fluid each formula is. So as I said, the Maybelline is definitely more of a neutral shade. Now here's the L'Oreal and here's the Maybelline. As you can see, there is much more fluidity to the L'Oreal than there is to the Maybelline. When you blend them out, there is such a difference in the texture of these two. If you can see past the colour difference there, the L'Oreal, it almost has a watery type texture. The Maybelline, it's much more foundation feeling. Definitely is such a difference between the two in relation to how they feel. How they finish, on the other hand, I have a different opinion on. Before we get started, I actually have both of these skin tints on today. So I have the L'Oreal on one side and I have the Maybelline on the other. Which one is on which side? I will tell you at the end. I'm going to now show you my L'Oreal wear test. So I'm going to show you footage of me applying this and show you different bits of footage throughout the day. So I tend to pop this on the back of my hand first, pop it onto my face, and for both of these wear tests, I've used my BK Beauty 101 brush. I don't think a sponge would be much good with these tints because I really do think a sponge would soak up the product so much. I find with the application of the L'Oreal, my favorite saying on this channel is a little bit goes a long way, but I don't feel that's the case with this tint. I feel like I have to use quite a lot of product to get to the level of coverage that I desire. And this is footage here of how it looks with no other makeup on. And now this is footage of my makeup complete, and I think it looks really nice. And here is footage of the makeup straight away in daylight. And the only places I decided to powder were my nose because that is my most problematic area. This next bit of footage is the 5-hour check-in, and the makeup still looks absolutely like it did when I put it on. This now is the 10-hour check-in. Yes, it has worn away a little bit around my nose and my forehead, but I'm a face toucher, so it's no surprise really that that has happened. I am blown away, to be honest, with the longevity of both of these skin tints. It really is amazing. And I've popped on there the results side by side of the wear test. So 9 AM when I applied the tint, and at 7 PM when I came back in for the final check-in. And I did not realise until I'd done the side by side, until I'd done the wear test, that this tint actually does oxidise a little bit, and I'd never noticed that before. Definitely does get darker. It doesn't become orange, but it definitely has oxidized, and I think you will be able to see that there in the side by side. The biggest thing that I noticed was the oxidizing, but for me that's not a problem. I think if you had a much lighter skin tone, maybe it would be. In relation to how it looks, I think in relation to how it wore throughout the day, I mean, I have no issues with how this wore during the day. Yes, on the 7 PM side, I am looking a little bit more shiny. It's worn a little bit. I'm not looking as polished, but for 10 hours of wear, I really think it's a brilliant skin tint. Okay, let's move on now to the Maybelline application and wear test. Again, I just like to apply this onto the back of my hand and then go in on my face. And this is a much more, as I said, thicker formula. I do not need a lot of this tint. So I just apply it in exactly the same way. And I think you may be able to see there, I feel like this is much more luminous. And I've seen people say that the L'Oreal is much more luminous. For me, I don't know whether it's my natural oils, whether it's my base. I always use the same base, the Charlotte Tilbury Magic Cream, but this comes out much more luminous on me than the L'Oreal. I'd say that I really only need to use one pump of this skin tint. It will comfortably cover my whole face. And here we are, there's the tint just applied. And here it is with my makeup applied. And I used exactly the same products each day just to make it fair. And here is the makeup in daylight. Again, I think it looks really good. I think it looks quite natural. And here we are for the 5-hour check-in. No change in the makeup at all. I don't think it's become overly shiny. I think it just looks just like it did when I put it on. And here we are 10 hours in. 10 hours in. And apart from maybe a little bit of wearing where I've been touching my face, I think it looks so good. Here we are back for the 10-hour check-in with studio lighting. It does look slightly makeup-y, slightly heavy. I am looking a little bit more shiny, but the makeup is still there. Let's have a look at a photograph of the wear test. So the Maybelline at 9 a.m. and at 7 p.m. I think it looks a little bit more worn after 10 hours, but I think that's super acceptable. I think it stood up amazingly well. The Maybelline does claim to be transfer proof, and I have included the transfer test here. And as you can see, barely any transfer at all. And I did try the L'Oreal too. Even though it doesn't claim to be transfer proof, I found the transfer very, very minimal. Okay, so you've seen them individually, you've seen them tested, and now I want you to just quickly look at this wear test side by side. So L'Oreal on one side, Maybelline on the other. Let's have a look at the similarities and the differences. This is after application. The L'Oreal does look a lot lighter than the Maybelline, and I feel like the Maybelline looks a lot glowier, and even with the makeup applied, the same makeup, I feel like the L'Oreal has a much more natural finish. Here we are in daylight. I feel like the L'Oreal looks a little bit more natural than the Maybelline does. Here we are with a 5-hour check-in. Again, I don't think there's been much of a change with the tints, with the foundations. I think they look exactly the same as what they did when they were applied. And here's for the 10-hour check-in. I am so blown away with the longevity of these tints. It's blown my mind, honestly. I can't believe how good they look 10 hours in. And here we go, studio lighting, and that's where I can see the oxidizing. I think 2 of them might oxidize a little bit actually, but definitely the L'Oreal. If we look at this side by side of the 2 foundations, I think it's very difficult to choose which one is better. And I don't think there are too many differences. The Maybelline does look a little bit heavier around the nose and the mouth area. So at the beginning of this video, I told you that I had the L'Oreal on one side and I had the Maybelline on the other. Which one do you think it is? So this is one side, this is another. Do you have any idea? Okay, I'll tell you. So on this side is the L'Oreal, and on this side is the Maybelline. Did you guess right? I don't think if you were to look at my face now, you would know that I had 2 different tints on, 2 different complexion products. I really don't think there are much in these tints, but I did compile a little list of what my personal opinion is on the differences between these 2 tints. I do think that the L'Oreal is a more fluid, more runny consistency, almost watery, definitely way more serum-like than the Maybelline. I think the Maybelline feels like a foundation. It feels like a very lightweight foundation that gives a really amazing amount of coverage. I would definitely say that you can get a solid medium coverage out of this tint. It is definitely way more foundation-like than what I expected it to be. So if we move to the L'Oreal, in relation to the coverage, I think I can get a good light coverage on there, and I can definitely build this up. However, it takes a lot for me to build it up. As I said, I have to use quite a bit of product. However, I do love how light and airy it feels. I love how confusing it is. It's very, very serum-like when you apply it, but it has this transition to a really lovely foundation. In relation to the finish, I definitely feel like on me personally, on my skin type, so I am kind of normal to dry. So with the L'Oreal on this side, I definitely find it to be more of a soft satin finish on me, but my natural oils definitely do come through throughout the day. So I've had this on for a few hours now, and I think it definitely does look more luminous as the day goes on. As I said, it does oxidize, which I've only just noticed. What I do love about this though, with the finish, it definitely is very blurring on my pores, and I really, really appreciate that. With the Maybelline, I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but I definitely feel like it has more of a luminosity, more of a radiance, bordering on dewy. I don't think it's as flattering around my pore area. I think as long as you prime your skin properly, you're not going to have any issues. But I think because it is heavier, because it has more coverage, there is the possibility that you will get a few more issues with things like pores or texture. So who is the L'Oreal better for? I think given the fact that it is infused with hyaluronic acid, the L'Oreal would definitely be more suited to people with normal to dry skin. However, I really do think that even if you had oily skin, I think this would be really good for you too. I think as long as you prep and you set your face, this serum's not going anywhere. It really is so long wearing. And I think in relation to the Maybelline, I think if you're feeling that your skin is feeling a little bit dull, I think you might prefer the Maybelline side. But in relation to the longevity of the two, I think they're both incredible. Some of the best complexion products I've ever used for longevity. Genuinely, they don't budge. How do they do this? I think it's because they genuinely do sink into the skin, because they are kind of skincare derived, I guess. I genuinely don't think you can go wrong with any. I think both of them are absolutely perfect for more mature skin, because I think they're both hydrating. I feel like they're both moisturizing. I think there is a time and a place for the two of them. Some days I want a lighter coverage and I'll reach for the L'Oreal. Some days I want something a little bit more, and then I will head for the Maybelline. Could I pick a favorite? I don't know if I could pick a favorite. I think if you were to twist my arm, if you were to force me to pick one right now, I may choose the Maybelline, just because it gives a little bit more coverage and because I don't have to use as much product when I'm applying, whereas L'Oreal, to get to where I want it to be, I have to use quite a bit of it. But that is, I'm nitpicking there. That is because you forced me. I love them both and I would never give either of them up. And for the price point, I did a video on the Hourglass Skin Tint, which I think is lovely. But my gosh, I would choose these hands down over the Hourglass. And that was 5 times more expensive. Maybe 6 times more expensive, actually. There we go. That is my roundup, my comparison of the two skin tints by L'Oreal and Maybelline. I love them both. I would wholeheartedly recommend them both. I think just have a look at those similarities and differences that I talked about, and just think about which one may suit you better. Thank you so much for joining me for another video. I would love it if you would consider subscribing if you haven't done so already, because I would obviously love to have you here. I'm really looking forward to seeing you in the next video, but until then, take care and bye for now.